Hello everyone, another video here on the channel. Today's topic is the myths of male neediness. Ask those of you who aren't yet subscribed to subscribe, leave a like if you like the content, and feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. A few weeks ago, I made a video talking about the difference between male and female suffering, and I mentioned that male suffering is much more linked to sexual neediness. Today, I want to explain what this sexual need means, what triggers it, and how to handle it. Here are tips I've used in my life and share with friends and intelligent men. First and foremost, I plan to leave a comment here following some of the material that I might cover in this video. This is something I find incredibly interesting for people to grasp, particularly in understanding how the concept of desire functions and the libido impulse. This is especially relevant when someone experiences that intense urge to ejaculate, whether it occurs through sexual activity or masturbation. This is a very ephemeral, very temporary desire. Okay, there's a phenomenal video by Gilherme Viking, a channel I admire a lot. I'll leave the video here in the fixed comment and you can check it out later. When men, society, or women mention that a certain man, or in this case men in general, are needy, or when they say that a guy is needy or that he has a friend who is needy, or even when they remark that they know a lot of people who are needy, it is important to recognize that this neediness is deeply interconnected with the sexual center of the brain. This is because throughout the vast expanse of 7 million years of evolution, men have not traditionally sought romance or sought validation from the female ego. When I say never, it is in comparison to the very short period of history we are considering now. This only recently begun to happen, so the biology of these millions of years takes precedence over this, and due to certain cultural stimuli that have happened, men often mistake this sexual desire for a need for affection. A desire for affection, let's put it this way, the amount of affection and care that a man requires is not as essential as society perceives it to be. Part of this issue arises from a misunderstanding that many people have because, for example, women generally don't have a way to fully comprehend how men operate. In fact, very few women have genuinely understood this dynamic. There are some videos available that you might come across featuring some women, often described as nerdy, who have experimented with testosterone. They've even mentioned on various podcasts that, well, now they finally understand why men feel the way they do about it because it's a constant feeling, it's all the time, and it gives them a new perspective on the male experience. So women, precisely because they are not living in men's bodies, often do not fully grasp this concept. And the confusion that arises stems from literature, cinema, and some branches of psychological study which have little to do with reality. This reality is much more akin to progressivism masquerading as science, and that is not surprising to anyone. Thus, many men often find themselves thinking that in the midst of the year 2021, in a world that seems utterly chaotic and filled with dysfunctional relationships, they are in need of a bit of love, some romance, and similar things to bring them comfort and happiness. It's important to note that what I'm discussing here really has nothing to do, even if it might seem like it, with any kind of speech saying that men should never date or anything like that. Honestly, I believe that everyone should be free to do what they want with their own lives. So there are actually channels out there that provide guidance, such as Tom Sandro's channel, which talks about topics like potential parental alienation, issues surrounding women's law, and even the men's law channel. They also discuss the misandric laws that we currently have in Brazil. Others discuss active and passive behaviors, like Brunau from Social Arts. Miguel from Attitude Alpha offers a comprehensive channel with many nuances. Mine focuses on stimuli and rewards. My channels focus, even if sometimes it seems like the content is a bit... It's not specifically about opposing any particular political group, like being against the left or anything similar. It's really focused on the development of masculinity. At times it might appear to be about relationships, and other times it might seem like a socio-economic analysis of how marriages have evolved over the years. However, generally speaking, it's truly about encouraging and rewarding. What makes society think men need to be big guys, little lovers, too many movies? This attempt to equalize genders, not just socially with salaries and opportunities, but biologically, is a farce. It's not about opposing any political group or the left. This is about biology. You can't bypass it. Men are naturally disposable. Many American MGTOW channels discuss this. Raccoon made many videos, and some Brazilians do too. I think Coruja do Carvalho has a video on it. Great channel, Coruja do Carvalho. I'm also going to leave a comment for you to subscribe to because it's truly a phenomenal piece of work that this guy has been doing. So when we talk about the disposability of man, what exactly does that mean? It's important to understand that the affective, loving, and romantic male need in this key of eros is essentially complete farce. The concept of disposability comes from the simple fact that if in an environment you have Imagine a scenario where there are 10 women and just one man. In just a few days or perhaps over the course of a few weeks, this single man has the potential to impregnate all of these women. When we consider this from the perspective of ensuring the continuity and survival of the species, it becomes clear why this dynamic is significant. I am not even addressing the concept of polygamy directly here, but rather focusing on the implications for the species continuity. In this context, particularly from the perspective of divine intentions or God's plan, polygamy plays a role. I'm alluding to it would be even in this key of continuity of the species in which a man manages to fertilize 10 women and the species continues. Now if you have 10 men and only one woman, it's complicated because then these men will probably kill each other to try to see who will fertilize this woman. So you have a totally dysfunctional society. That is, women don't need many men, men in nature. Of course, by disposability I don't mean nullity. If there are no men, nullity means to serve absolutely nothing at all if there isn't a man or a species. Just as if there isn't a woman or a species, then the species simply comes to a halt. It's not like those yellow scorpions you find out there where the female can reproduce on her own automatically. Therefore, you don't need a large number of men in the environment. This concept of disposability indicates that men, by nature, have been given a very strong level of testosterone. On TFM, there are many. I'll also link TFM's videos in the pinned comment. There's a channel called TRP that has subtitled many of his videos. Brazil needs more editors of subtitle content, as American Red Pill, Migto, etc. is phenomenal. TFM often discusses how men have higher testosterone with a strong drive to think about sex constantly essential for the species. Keep going. If men had low libido, they'd see relationships as less useful, with monogamy favoring them. I'm discussing evolutionary extremes, not how monogamy and marriage function, especially during the Christian era, which had societal benefits. I'm focusing on the biological aspect. I might make a video later discussing civilizations. In this context, I'm referring to the biological key. Just to clarify, in case anyone comments, I'm discussing this in reproductive and biological terms, specifically regarding the continuity of the species. Monogamy in this sense isn't strictly necessary. That's the key point I'm addressing here. So the TFM explores this issue, highlighting that the man's intense testosterone is actually intended to ensure the continuation of the species. And this has been present within us for millions of years. So when the environment, now I'm talking, I said a bit about stimuli. What makes you think is all this romantic culture from 400, 500 years ago, which intensified a lot in the 20th century with the cinema, that a man needs to love a woman, needs to woo a woman. All this is extremely recent in society. So don't fall for it. It's not a natural part of life, even though, as I often mention, some relationships and marriages do work, but they are a small minority nowadays. It's more about randomness and luck. Okay? In Brazil, people often dismiss the word luck. They believe everything is about merit, work, effort, but luck, randomness, chaos theory, right? It's very important, right? That movie, The Butterfly Effect, I recommend everyone watch it, even though I believe nearly everyone has watched the classic. So the small decisions you make back then can actually help you have a happy future in some important ways, and relationships are one of these key factors. So this question of men's libido, what exactly are these stimuli which come from culture, and what happens with them? How is the environment today? Today I believe it's much easier to identify that this is purely sexual desire, rather than this question of chemistry, connection, and the idea of soulmates that a guy might think he has with a woman, right? Although I think there are some cases of this, it's not democratic, okay? It's something it's a privilege for very few people to have a compatible key, isn't it? Women love to idealize that everyone has half the orange and everything. Even some guys say that it's brainwashing. If it were like that, there wouldn't be so many divorcees, single mothers, etc. in society, right? So today's environment is easier to see as all about libido, right? It's about guys wanting sex, not dating. Why? Because today's sexual liberation of women shows results. Note, I'm not judging morally. Women want this, do as you please. I'm just explaining societal events. So when it comes to this issue of OnlyFans and the fact that practically every woman has a picture of herself in a bikini or showing her behind, etc. on Instagram, men are constantly bombarded with these images. For women, one might say, oh, what's the big deal? No, there's really nothing so remarkable about it. Do what you wish. I'm merely explaining the anthropology behind all of this. So But women specifically, because they don't fully comprehend men's bodies, they are aware of this, yet they tend to think it's rather silly. And deep down, they know men get really turned on when they see this kind of photo. So the guy sees them all the time. He creates his own playful imagination, and it only increases his desire to have sex. And as he sees women, he knows it intensifies even more than pornography itself. And the guy creates a need, and if he doesn't have plenty, or at least the minimum amount of plenty, which in the case of 10 to 15% of men in Brazil alone, 80 to 85%, many men in Brazil are experiencing a sexual desert. They either have to pay for it or they seldom engage in casual sex. These men are being so overwhelmed that they start believing the issue lies with them. They begin to feel needy, thinking they require a girlfriend, leading them to lower their standards. The man is going to endure humiliation and more because he believes this will fulfill his need. Many people argue it's a way to fill a void. However, I don't like approaching it this way, as it makes the man feel quite well. Brazil is already a country facing hardships. 80 to 85% of the men there earn up to 2,000 VS monthly. Many are struggling, selling lunch to afford dinner, trying to grasp the situation. And then you come along and say that it's the guy's problem and that he lacks self-esteem. There's no way. A country like Brazil makes its citizens really sad. But you can't just hand over the cards. You can't pick them up and say, because it's bad, I'm going to hand them over. You don't have to fall for a motivational coach, but you can't let the ball drop. So I prefer to say that it's much easier for men to understand that it's not their psychological problem, but an environment of scarcity. So there are various, I don't like to talk about techniques, okay, but various activities in which a man can feel this lack. So everyone already knows gym, a better diet. The guy, if he gets to the point of getting out of control and the guy has a minimum of condition there, pays a call girl, no problem, okay, or don't get attached. In a casual relationship, when you go out with a girl, listen to your body. It's signaling red flags. What are they? For those jumping in, most know what it is. It's a hard term to translate to Brazil, meaning red flags. Signs a woman gives that are obvious, not just women. Sometimes in deals, you'll sense a scam. Your body reacts before seeing these flags. By the time you reason it out and tell a friend, you've already messed up. So listen, really feel your body, whether it's saying it's cold or not. Then understand that this desire to be close to a woman, although female companionship is good for men, is much more sexual than emotional. And the more the environment is reminiscent of promiscuity, no matter how many of the women who are showing everything on Instagram, it's even a contraction. I'm going to make a video about it, okay? These women have even less sex than those of past generations because they're always looking for the top of the top, but that's a topic for another time. So don't confuse the stimuli you're receiving, which comes from there, with what you're receiving. This is unconscious work that you need to try and pass on. And then you're thinking that it's all about holding hands and cuddling and sleeping together, but that's not it. The need is fundamentally sexual. From a biological perspective, men do not inherently possess a need for monogamy, love, and similar things. However, as I mentioned earlier in this video, such needs exist within social, civilizational, and even religious frameworks. There are significant elements and some concrete evidence supporting this. Additionally, there are arguments opposing this, suggesting that society functions more effectively when there are more couples, monogamy, and fathers and mothers raising children together within society. This is quite evident. However, a completely anti-male environment which favors women in all spheres of family justice and so on, and misandric laws, it's better not to get involved with it, because there's no point in thinking that things are going to be like 1937 in the year 2021 with Instagram, TikTok, and OnlyFans. Okay, so don't try to be conservative if women aren't conservative anymore. Okay, if they want to be conservative after the 30, that's their problem. They'll have to take over these bombs. So that's all we have for you. All right, the key message here is that this neediness is largely driven by libido, by the urge to pass on our genes, rather than by genuine need to fill a void with love, or the idea that everyone must have a love in their life. Okay, monogamy, as it's promoted by society with this feminist narrative that emasculates men by suggesting they must be the white knight, the gentlemanly figure, is really a complete fraud. All right, stay sharp and keep thinking. All right, big hugs to everyone.